being actually training children in the wrong way of law, which is this, criminal kind of break the law using law for your own advantage.
Skirting.
And there's no scruples, there's no ethics. If what I saw in New York is the ethics department, we're in a whole world of literally, imagine this is the Wall Street ethics department washing U.S. attorney complaints. I mean, it's unheard of what she disclosed in Gotham that day.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it in a federal court. I would assume that Andrew Cuomo is all over this with at least an investigation, meaning his office was defending the state defendants she was accusing, and thereby failing to even investigate the public officials. Notice how the conflicts, again, work to deny any prosecution of these people who have placed themselves above the law.
How do you define your being a victim now of the Florida bar? How would you define that?
Well, how do they rape you? Molest you?
Yeah, well, that was...
Molest your life? Well, you asked that, and I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
And I prefaced it with those words because they allowed somebody to put a bomb in my car and attempt to murder my 3 children, including Justice Jorge Labarga, who was the West Palm Beach fixer of the Bush-Gore election, and we all owe him a thanks for the Bush pick he gave us. And for that, he got, elected within the criminal organization and got to the Supreme Court from his felonious conduct, as well as conduct directly in my lawsuit, a lawsuit that's even more bizarre. But how do you feel? I feel like all of those people at the bar, at the Florida Supreme Court, and even at the West Palm Beach, Judge Labarga's court, that, they blocked all my rights to get into court, meaning I'm trying to sue lawyers and judges and, regulators and state officials, and they were all afraid to let me into a courtroom to present my evidence, which is, beyond a reasonable doubt they were caught stealing the patents.
Right.
One lawyer putting 90 patents in his own name. Beyond.
Beyond is right.
And so you feel completely raped, sodomized, without your legal rights by the very people who are supposed to be entrusted to uphold those rights. And so I always say to people, one of the related cases to the whistleblower, including my lawsuit, is Gisela Weishaus, a famous Nazi Holocaust survivor who won the Swiss Bank Money Awards several years ago. And I was talking to her as she was getting beat up in the courts and denied due process from the same judges and writing great pleadings but completely getting denied. I said, well, Gisela, it's like going to the Gestapo and telling them the camp guards are treating you bad and the food sucks.
It's a funny statement, but it's not funny, haha.
Okay, so in New York, where Anderson blew the whistle on these guys, I immediately stepped outside my lawsuit and said to the entire Second Circuit and U.S. District Court, freeze. I actually filed a motion to compel, and I'm about to file a motion to kiss my ass, which is to tell them, freeze, you're under arrest. She just pointed to every lawyer in New York. She said, not in New York, actually here in Florida maybe too, because she said favored lawyers and law firms. She said U.S. attorneys. She fingered every lawyer in New York as being part of this this disciplinary system gone amok. And until we know who these lawyers are that she's blowing the whistle on, who these prosecutors are, the U.S. attorneys, I charge them all with criminal obstruction of justice because she points out the same conflicts of interest, document destruction, and everything I've been complaining about from these bar agencies who do nothing but abuse people. They do absolutely nothing. In fact, what they do is they give lawyers a chance. I would never send another complaint or tell everybody not to send any complaints to the bars. Just file criminal actions against your attorneys for either misdemeanors or felony misconduct. And stay away from the bars because you're giving all your evidence to the lawyers in advance, and they, in conflict, could go handle their own cases. In both cases in New York and Florida, I found Proskauer partners violating the Florida bar rules and the New York bar rules, not bar rules, but disciplinary rules. And in both instances, that's where Deborah Yarber of the Florida Supreme Court helped me get up to the Supreme Court. And in New York, 5 justices ordered people from Proskauer and the guy who put the 90 patents in his name, Ray Joao, ordered for investigation by 5 justices. Now, that got derailed because these guys are great at penetrating all of the, because of their legal titles, they're almost accepted into, prosecutorial, judge, you name it, a legal degree will get you in the door. And where you're defending your life, these firms like Greenberg and Proskauer and Foley and Lardner here in Florida, right now there's also a Florida philanthropist, Monty Friedkin, who was run the same steal his intellectual properties from his company by the same ring of Proskauer, Foley, gang of guys here in Florida. And, obviously, if you control the bars and you're able to handle your own complaints against yourself in conflict and violation of the rules, then you should fear not stealing from anybody. And so then again, I would remind everybody not to go to a patent attorney. File your own patents and now they're trying to make it first to file. Actually, some of the people who I'm accusing have placed people inside the patent office recently through Obama. Including David Kapos of IBM and some other people from Foley and Lardner, where they're trying to get it first to file, and then, you'll always be 2 steps behind your lawyer.
My guest this afternoon is Eliot Bernstein. Eliot is an inventor, and he had invented some extremely valuable patented items that were taken from him by his Florida attorneys, and has been going through a process of trying to recapture what was taken from him in the courts, and has basically run into exactly what I'm talking about on this program, which is a very high level of corruption at the disciplinary level, and recommends that rather than go through the disciplinary process, that you file criminal complaints against the attorneys. We're going to put a pin through that, and when we come back from this short commercial break, we're going to talk a little bit more with Eliot Bernstein about how that would work, and also to try to get a clearer understanding of exactly what the process is if you are damaged by an attorney in the state of Florida, which is where we are, and now also it's you're saying that the state of New York has got some problems as well, but we're going to touch on that when we come back. This is Disbar, the Florida Bar, and we're with you every weekday here from 2 to 3 right here on The Biz in South Florida, 880 a.m. on the dial, and we also stream live on www.disbarthefloridabar.com. I know that that's probably a funny name for a radio show and a funny name for a website, but it's a true name because what we're trying to do is to disbar the Florida bar and stop the bar from being the entity that disciplines attorneys in the state of Florida. The attorneys are disciplining themselves, and as a result, it's created a very dangerous good old boys network and created a lot of rotten apples, and it is very difficult to overcome those handicaps when you're involved in lawsuits against those in power, and you are denied honest services from the Florida Bar because they are a controlling entity in the state of Florida to such a degree that nothing can be done to correct that problem, short of eliminating them through the corruption at the head. And we have talked about the corruption of John Harkness, who is the executive director of the Florida Bar, in that he does sit on the board of the Florida Lawyers Mutual Insurance Company, which is a for-profit insurance company. So here you have someone who is the head of a state agency, also operating in his capacity as a director on a for-profit insurance company. That for-profit insurance company's objective is to protect lawyers who are sued for malpractice, and that in and of itself is a conflict of interest that should have been investigated a long time ago. We have a governor who has impaneled the state grand juries to ferret out corruption in the judiciary, and to date, even though we've noticed everybody in the executive branch, everybody in the federal U.S. Attorney's Office with regard to this individual's conflicts, nothing has happened. They do go after others of less power. We see that daily in the newspapers where they've gone after commissioners, school board commissioners, trying to make the appearance that they are ferreting out corruption, and yet they're leaving corruption at the highest level in place, and that's a level that affects all of us. You are going to be affected at some time in your life by an unfair playing field when it comes to the law. And when you go into a court in that scenario, if you are not part of the powerful group, you stand to lose no matter what. And they are taking money from senior citizens, from the guardianship programs. They're taking money from the bankruptcies. They're taking money and property from individuals in every way they can because they are able to. Now, we're not saying that all attorneys are bad. We're not suggesting that all attorneys do illegal things. We're not doing anything of the kind. What we're saying is that there is a network of protected attorneys who are powerful law firms, who are insiders, who get the benefit of the benefit of protection from this racketeering operation, and that's what needs to be corrected. We're going to be back with my guest Eliot Bernstein, who has been affected as a victim by having patents stolen from him. He has a $12 trillion lawsuit against many of the entities that we've been discussing, including New York entities. And we'll be back with Eliot after the short commercial break. Don't go away. My name is Les Winston, and I host Disbar, the Florida Bar, right here on the Biz in South Florida.
The United States Trustees Program is the largest organized criminal element in the world.
In Florida, all other professionals except lawyers are governed by the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Only lawyers regulate themselves through the Florida Bar.
Because the Florida Bar is controlling all three branches of government now. We have attorneys in all three branches. There's a system out of control. There's no more check and balance.
This has created a very dangerous good old boys club and a lot of rotten apples.
Sue me.
Tune in each weekday from 2 o'clock to 3 p.m. and listen to stories of individuals who have been affected by the corruption of the Florida Bar. We want you to be aware of the problem that we have with this disciplinary agency. Join us every weekday, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. right here on The Biz. And we're back. This is Disbar, the Florida Bar. My guest this afternoon is Eliot Bernstein. Eliot is a very knowledgeable individual, a very smart person who has been affected, having had patents. He's an inventor. He certainly is someone who can figure out chess games and figure out the intricacies of these interwoven parties. Eliot, I wanted to go back to your comment before where you said that rather than file a complaint with the Florida Bar or with the New York Bar or with any of the bar associations, the first thing you should do is file a criminal complaint against the attorney with a law enforcement agency.
Correct.
Yeah, I did that. I was a victim, and in my capacity as a director of Barron's Stores, which was a well-known men's retailer here in South Florida. I became involved about 4 years ago, 6 years ago actually, in a process where they were trying to collect in a lawsuit against 3 attorneys for malpractice, and one of the attorneys for the other side proffered counterfeit documents from the United States Bankruptcy Court, brought them into a state court, and I went to the Dade County Corruption Unit, Dade County Police Corruption Unit, and reported him to the Corruption Unit. And what they did was they sent it to they did the intake, they did the investigation. They didn't have to do much investigation because I provided them with the document and I provided them with an independent forensic expert's opinion under oath that was a counterfeited document. And what they did was they took it to the state attorney, to the state's attorney's office, and the state's attorney's office said, well, we're not in a position to determine whether this is really a counterfeited document or not, and this is there's something going on in the courts, so let the courts decide. What do you think would happen in most cases where you file a criminal complaint against an attorney?
Well, the problem is far larger. Mm-hmm. Because, Alberto Gonzalez tipped you off that the Justice Department had been